For all sports fans, no matter what the sport is, you want to get in on the action even more. Now when it comes to fantasy sports, it's obvious that fantasy football, at least, I'm talking here from the United States, is by far the largest, and F1 wants in on that action, of course. So for this 2022 F1 season, me and some friends, we set up a league ourselves, and there's some great things that I really enjoy about it, but also some not great things that F1 Fantasy has to offer. So today, we're going to take a look at how F1 Fantasy works, and then some pros and some cons about it. Hey everybody, F1 Pit Stop here. Thank you so much for clicking on the video. It would mean the world to me if you were to hit the subscribe button. I'm trying to grow the channel and pump out some F1 content. So thanks for watching. Now let's get into it. When you first sign up to join the league, you and your friends can create up to 3 different teams within the same league. Each team you make is made up of 5 drivers and then a constructor that you choose. You can overlap and have any driver on any of the teams, but you can't have the same of 2 driver on one team, if that makes sense. You start with a $100 million budget, and each driver constructor has a value in which you can exceed $100 million when making up your team. For example, Mercedes is the highest constructor value with the price of $33.7 million, and Max Verstappen is the highest value driver with $30.5 million. Kevin Magnussen actually has the lowest value of $6.1 million. Somehow Latifi is above him. F1, you'll have to explain that one to me. So now when you have your teams assembled, whether you want to make one or a few, I know I just have one, but during F1 weekends, the practice sessions have no effect on what points are scored. That's really for you to study up and see which drivers are taking to the track the best and that you think will have the best chance during qualifying and the race. So now we get to point scoring, and personally I think that point scoring is overly complicated and a mess, especially when you get into streaks and your turbo driver, your mega driver, and all the different factors they have. I'll throw up screenshots here of how the points are scored in qualifying and in the race, and then also when it comes to sprint qualifyings. So feel free to pause the video and take a look at those, but when it comes down to it, the better your driver does in qualifying and the race, the more points that the driver is going to get. I do think that there's room to simplify this, so obviously F1, I know you're watching the video, take that into consideration. So looking at a pro, especially compared to other fantasy sports, if you played any other fantasy sports, then you know exactly what the pros are. It's fun to get together with friends over F1 to compete, see who can put together the better team and put a friendly wager on it, or just bragging rights, and see who could have put together the better F1 team over the changing season. Also, the interface and the website and how you use it is super simple and easy, and it makes it fun to use, and really anybody could figure it out, so that's a big plus. Alright, now let's hop over to one con of it that, I think is the biggest con of it, and I think that this might sound a little strange, but it's just how the sport of F1 is set up itself. Here's what I mean. In fantasy football, American football, there's so many different players and games throughout the week. So if you wanted to, you could spend time every day kind of like researching how a player's doing, if they'll be playing, if they're healthy, and so on and so forth. But when it comes to F1 fantasy, it's honestly a lot more predictable, and you don't have to look at it or even pay attention to the team you've created all that much. Basically once every 2 weeks. Now we're in between the Canadian Grand Prix and Silverstone, and this weekend there's no race, so why would I even bother paying attention to it? This really makes it tough to be invested into the team you've created, and honestly, unless one of the teams really makes a major upgrade to the car or something along those lines, then there's actually no need to change your team once you have a solid one, because honestly, the good cars and good drivers who do well keep continuing to do well, and nothing really changes there. Here's my team, and I really feel like unless something drastic happens, particularly with Ferrari, because it's pretty Ferrari heavy, I won't change it at all. I'm not 100% sure what F1 could do to make F1 fantasy more interactive, but I really feel like it would bring more people to it. Let me know if you've ever played F1 Fantasy in the past, if you had a good time with it, kind of what your experience was, especially compared to other fantasy sports. Thank you so much for watching. Again, if you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing to the channel, and I'll catch you at the next one.